It was a quiet, dark night on March 27, 1999. The NATO bombing campaign over Yugoslavia was in full swing. Among the aircraft flying that night were several stealth fighters, including the famous F-117 Nighthawk. These jets had been flying into Serbian airspace for weeks, striking high-value targets with precision. They were believed to be invisible to radar, unstoppable, untouchable. But that night, everything changed. One of the Nighthawks, known by its call sign Vega 31, took off on what seemed like a routine mission. The pilot, an experienced American lieutenant colonel, was flying into Serbian territory to strike a designated target near the capital, Belgrade. But what he didn't know was that Serbian air defense teams had been watching. They had been observing NATO's flight patterns for days. They knew when the stealth jets would come. And more importantly, they had a plan. The Serbs didn't have cutting-edge radar or the most modern missile systems. What they had was patience, discipline, and a clever strategy. They used an older Soviet-made radar system, one that wasn't very powerful, but could detect objects at low frequency if timed just right. Instead of keeping their radars on, they kept them off, waiting. At the right moment, when a stealth jet was passing overhead, they turned the radar on for just a few seconds, long enough to detect, lock on, and launch. As Vega 31 flew into the target area, the pilot opened the bomb bay doors to release his payload. In that brief moment, the jet's radar signature increased dramatically. The stealth design was no longer invisible. That was the moment the Serbian air defense commander had been waiting for. He ordered the launch of 2 surface-to-air missiles. The first missile streaked into the sky but missed. The second one exploded near the F-117, sending a shockwave and shrapnel ripping through the jet. The plane shuddered, rolled, and began to fall. Inside the cockpit, the pilot struggled to control the crippled aircraft, but it was hopeless. He ejected as the jet broke apart in the sky, flames trailing behind it. The pilot landed in a field in rural Serbia. He was alone, on enemy soil, with troops already looking for him. He did what he had been trained to do, hid in a ditch, turned on his radio beacon, and waited. Helicopters and search planes were already scrambling to find him. Serbian soldiers came close, even within a few hundred meters, but missed him in the darkness. Back in the air, a U.S. pararescue team was racing toward the signal. They launched in the middle of the night, dodging enemy radar and relying on precise coordinates from a command center. After several tense hours, they reached the pilot and pulled him out. He was safely returned to base. The rescue had succeeded. But back in Serbia, the remains of the F-117 lay scattered in a field. The wreckage was largely intact, a symbol of a remarkable moment in military history. For the first time ever, a stealth aircraft had been shot down in combat. The myth of invincibility was shattered. In the days that followed, pieces of the aircraft were collected by the Serbian military and later displayed in museums. Some were rumored to have been shared with other countries, but no official confirmation was ever given. What was clear was that the event had exposed vulnerabilities in stealth technology, not in the design, but in the tactics. The U.S. military studied the incident closely. They realized the enemy had not used superior firepower, but rather smart thinking, observation, and timing. The use of short radar bursts and waiting until the jet's bomb bay doors opened had been the key to success. It was a simple trap, executed perfectly. This event led to changes in how stealth aircraft were used. Flight patterns became less predictable. Radar jamming escorts were prioritized. And assumptions about invisibility were reconsidered. It was a harsh reminder that no technology is completely immune to the creativity and determination of an opponent. Years later, something remarkable happened. The American pilot who had been shot down met the very man who had ordered the missile launch. They sat together, talked, and even became friends. 2 men who had once faced each other in war now shook hands in peace. It was a human moment that stood in contrast to the cold logic of war machines and missiles. The F-117 continued to fly in limited roles for a few more years before being officially retired. Newer stealth aircraft like the F-22 and F-35 took its place. But none of them ever forgot the lesson of that night over Serbia. Even the most advanced weapons can fall, if met with the right mix of timing, knowledge, and patience. The story of the Nighthawk's fall became legendary. Not because it was a failure, but because it reminded the world that even giants can bleed. Stealth is powerful, but not invincible. And in the silent skies of war, all it takes is one moment, one well-placed shot, to change everything. The wreckage remains a reminder. It speaks to the bravery of the pilot, the skill of the rescuers, and the cunning of the defenders. It was not just a victory or a loss. It was a turning point in the understanding of modern air power. Technology gives an edge, but never a guarantee. In the end, it is still a battle of minds. What happened that night was more than just the downing of a jet. It was proof that warfare is not only about machines, but about human decisions, made in seconds, that can echo for decades.